Evan Brooks sat in his car outside the little Italian cafe, his hands resting on the steering wheel. The rain had stopped an hour ago, leaving the air cool and damp. Street lights made the wet pavement shine. He looked at his reflection in the window and sighed. He did not even want to be there. His sister had set up the blind date, saying it was time he met someone again. He had said no many times before, but she had kept pushing until he gave up and agreed. It had been 3 long years since his wife, Laura, had passed away. The days had turned into years before he'd even noticed. He had put all his energy into raising his daughter, Lily. She was 6 now, bright and cheerful, with a laugh that reminded him of the life he had lost and the one he still needed to protect. The idea of dating again had always felt like an impossible step. Tonight his heart felt heavy, like it was betraying something sacred. Still, he could not cancel on the woman who was waiting for him. He checked his watch, took a slow breath, and stepped out of the car. The small bell above the cafe door jingled as he walked in. The place smelled of coffee and warm bread, and every small sound echoed softly between the brick walls and wooden chairs. He looked around, feeling unsure, then spotted her sitting by the window. She was easy to notice. A woman with calm eyes, dark hair lightly falling across one shoulder, and a notebook beside her, glass of water. She was looking down, writing something, her hand moving with a gentle rhythm. When she felt his presence, she looked up and smiled. It was not a big smile, but it carried warmth that reached her eyes. Evan walked over and introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Evan." The woman raised her hand in greeting, and then, to his surprise, pointed to her throat softly. She picked up her small notebook and wrote a few neat words, turning it so he could read, "I am sorry. I cannot speak. My name is Clara." Evan blinked and nodded. For a moment he stood there, not sure what to do, but her kind smile put him at ease. He sat down, trying not to seem awkward. "That's all right," he said, his voice gentle, unsure if she could hear well or not. She started writing again and pushed the notebook toward him. "Thank you for coming. Your sister said you like coffee. I ordered one for you. Is that okay?" He smiled. "That's perfect. Thank you." It felt strange at first. He was used to words filling the air, covering silence with small talk. Clara's quiet presence felt both unfamiliar and peaceful. When the waiter brought their drinks, she thanked him with a polite nod and reached for a small chalkboard she had tucked beside the notebook. She wrote more easily on it. "So, you work with architecture, right?" she wrote. Evan laughed lightly. "Yes, I do." "How did my sister tell you all that?" Clara smiled again and wrote, "She seemed proud." He laughed again, this time more relaxed. They began to exchange short notes, slow but meaningful. He found himself enjoying it. She had small drawings beside her sentences: a cup of coffee, a smiling face, a house with 2 crooked windows. Her handwriting curved softly, like water flowing across the page. Halfway through dinner, Evan realized how natural it had become to talk with her without sound. They shared small stories. She told him through her words that she worked as an art teacher at a local school for children with speech impairments. She loved drawing and painting, and she had learned to live comfortably in silence. He told her about his daughter, how she loved fairy tales and would never sleep without hearing a story first. Clara's eyes lit up as she read that, and she quickly drew a stick figure holding a flashlight over an open book. Evan laughed, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir in him that was not grief. When dessert came, she pointed to the menu and drew a small cake beside it, asking if he liked chocolate. He nodded. They ended up sharing one plate, laughing silently at how messy it became. Each time their hands brushed as they reached for the same fork, his heart beat faster in quiet surprise. As the evening ended, Clara wrote one final line. "Thank you for making this easy. Most people get nervous when they learn. I cannot speak." Evan looked at her and shook his head slowly. "You've said more tonight than most people do in hours," he said softly. She smiled again, that same warm, calm smile, the kind that stayed with him long after he stepped out into the cool night air. He walked back to his car, feeling lighter. For the first time in years, his heart did not feel like a locked room. It felt like a door had opened a little. And though he did not know what might happen next, the silence that had once felt lonely now seemed full of meaning. The next week moved more quickly than Evan expected. Work kept him busy, and Lily kept him even busier. Yet every time he found a quiet moment, his thoughts went back to Clara sitting by the window that evening, smiling as she wrote on her chalkboard. Had not planned to see her again, but she had given him something peaceful to remember. On Friday, his sister called to ask how the blind date went. He told her it was nice, and ended the conversation before she could tease him further. By Saturday morning, he found himself standing near a small bookstore that shared a street with the cafe where they had met. He told himself it was only a coincidence. But when he saw her through the window, sitting at a corner table, sketching again with a cup of tea beside her, something in him said he should go in. He pushed the door open and stepped inside before his nerves could stop him. Clara looked up as soon as he neared the table. Her surprise quickly turned into a bright smile. She wrote on her chalkboard, "Evan Brooks, right on schedule." He laughed softly. "Schedule," he said. "I did not even know I had one." She wrote again, "Good timing then." He sat down, still unsure whether he had interrupted her. She pointed to the drawing she was working on. It showed a street corner with a little bookstore just like the one outside the window. Her hand moved lightly, building shapes with quiet confidence. He watched her work for a moment. There was something steady about her. She seemed to live in silence without fighting it. She slid the chalkboard to him again. "I like drawing where stories begin. Everyone who opens a book looks hopeful in some way." He nodded. "It's a beautiful way to see it." She wrote, "You read often?" "I used to." He smiled. "Not much time now." "My daughter takes over most stories at night. Her imagination is stronger than mine." Clara's eyes softened. "Tell me about her," she wrote. We described Lily's curly hair, how she liked to paint her nails different colors each week, and how no bedtime story ever ended the same way twice. Clara listened through her eyes, catching every detail, wrote only small responses, sweet or funny, or simply drew a heart beside Lily's name. For a while, they sat without writing. The bookstore's doorbell chimed each time a customer walked in. The smell of paper and coffee mixed in the air. Evan realized he felt calm. There was no pressure to fill the silence because the silence between them did not feel empty. After some time, she wrote again, "Would you like to join art class one day with children?" He raised his eyebrows, surprised. "Me, yes. We paint stories." "The children will like your stories." He laughed at that, a little embarrassed, but nodded. "Maybe I will come." Later that afternoon, they walked through a nearby park. She carried her sketchbook. He carried 2 cups of coffee. Children ran around the swings and ducks glided across the pond. Clara paused to draw them while Evan watched. Her lines were quick, yet gentle, like she captured more than just outlines. When a little boy stopped near her and peeked at her page, she bent down, showed him the picture, and let him add a tiny line himself. She smiled at the boy's crooked mark, clapped lightly, and let him keep the drawing. The boy ran off delighted. Evan could not help but smile. "You're very kind with kids," he said. Clara tilted her head and wrote, "They understand silence." He thought about that for a while. He remembered how Lily often spoke to her toys without waiting for answers, as if silence itself responded. Maybe that was why children liked Clara. As the sun began to lower, the light fell across her cheeks in soft gold. He wanted to ask how she had lost her voice, but he stopped himself. It felt too personal. She caught his pause and wrote, "You can ask." He hesitated, but finally said, "Has it always been that way?" She looked at him, then nodded. "Since I was 8. Illness. I learned that quiet can still tell stories." She handed him the chalkboard again, smiling. "Now you know my secret." He smiled back, touched by her calm. "Not a bad secret," he said. "Feels more like power." She laughed silently, shaking her head, writing, "You make it sound heroic." He shrugged, raising his cup. "Maybe it is." When they said goodbye near her car, she handed him a small folded paper. "Next Saturday, if you are free," she wrote. Inside was a simple invitation to the school's art fair. He promised he would come. As he drove home, the city lights blurred past him, and he felt an unfamiliar lightness. For the first time in years, silence had not reminded him of pain. It had become something steady and alive. He looked forward to next Saturday, not because of obligation, but because he wanted to see her again. He did not know why yet, but her quiet world seemed to speak to a part of him that had been waiting to listen. Sunday morning arrived with soft sunlight slipping through the curtains of Evan's small house. Lily was at the dining table eating cereal and humming a tune from the cartoon she had watched the night before. She wore her favorite yellow headband, slightly crooked, but she did not care. Evan poured himself coffee and tried to read the newspaper, but every time he turned a page, his thoughts went back to Clara and the art fair invitation sitting on the counter. Lily noticed the folded paper and asked what it was. Evan hesitated, unsure what to tell her. He finally said it was from a friend who worked at a school. Lily's big brown eyes grew curious. "Can I come too?" she asked, swinging her legs under the chair. Evan told her they would see later. He smiled at her excitement, but inside he wondered what it would be like to let his daughter meet Clara. It still felt too soon, too delicate. Later that day, Evan cleaned out his jacket pockets and found a small drawing stuck between a receipt and his wallet. It was the sketch Clara had made during their first meeting, showing a family holding hands under a moon. He smiled, then slid it into a small frame and placed it on the bookshelf. Lily soon spotted it. She stood on tiptoe to look closer and said, "Who drew this?" Evan lowered his voice. "A friend named Clara." Lily turned toward him, her smile playful. "Is she your new friend from work?" He laughed a little. "Not from work. She teaches art." Lily's eyes widened. "So she can draw like this all the time?" "Yes, she is very good," he replied. Lily studied the picture again, tracing the drawn moon with her fingertip. "The little girl in this looks like me," she said. Evan paused. He had not noticed that before, but she was right. The small child in the drawing had curly hair that indeed looked like Lily's. His heart gave a quiet jump. He brushed the thought away and said the picture was just a nice drawing. The week passed in a blur of work meetings, homework, and bedtime stories. Friday evening arrived, and Clara sent a short message asking if he would still come to the art fair. Her handwriting on the note looked patient and calm. Evan answered yes. Then Lily ran into the room wearing her little jacket and asked where they were going that weekend. "Maybe somewhere new," he said. Saturday morning, the air was bright and full of chatter as Evan parked near the small community center. Children carried colorful banners and families moved between art booths. Clara stood near a table with a row of paintings done by her students. When she saw Evan approaching with Lily holding his hand, her eyes lit up. She waved at both of them. Evan lowered his voice. "Lily, this is my friend Clara." Lily looked up, a bit shy at first. Clara knelt down to her height and smiled. Then she took out her chalkboard and wrote, "Hello, Lily. I am happy to meet you." She showed it slowly, letting Lily read it herself. Lily's eyes grew wide. "You don't talk." Clara shook her head gently and smiled again. She wrote, "I can hear but not speak. I use this board to talk." Lily seemed confused for a moment, and then gave a bright grin. "That's cool," she said. "Can I write to Clara?" Nodded and handed her the chalk with an expectant look. Lily started writing clumsy letters and a small heart beside them. Clara clapped silently, her eyes warm with joy. They both laughed. Lily out loud and Clara with her eyes. Evan stood nearby watching the two of them and felt something stir in his chest. The connection between them looked so natural. Clara showed Lily the students' artwork. There were paintings full of colors, some shaped like clouds, others showing houses and families. Lily touched one canvas carefully and said, "This one feels alive." Clara read her lips and nodded, pleased with the comment. An hour passed quickly. Evan helped Clara pack up some supplies at the end of the fair. Lily kept following Clara like a small shadow, asking silent questions with her hands, pointing at drawings, and smiling often. When they were ready to leave, Clara knelt again to say goodbye. Lily looked at her and suddenly asked, "Will you come to our house?" Evan blushed, unsure what to say, but Clara wrote on the board, "Maybe one day." Then Lily did something unexpected. She took Clara's hand gently and said with innocent honesty, "Are you my new mommy?" The question hung in the air and made both adults freeze. People nearby kept walking, unaware of how the world between the three of them had gone very still. Clara blinked, caught between surprise and tenderness. Evan felt his throat tighten, opened his mouth, then closed it again, no words ready. Clara finally wrote, slowly and clearly, "I am your friend for now." Lily smiled and hugged her. Evan could see tears in Clara's eyes, though she was still smiling. On the drive home, Lily held the little chalk heart Clara had drawn for her and whispered, "Lily, she is nice." Evan nodded, his heart heavy, yet strangely hopeful. That simple question had shaken something deep within him. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider that maybe life could open again. Not as it once was, but as something new and beautiful taking shape in silence and kindness. The evening after the art fair felt quiet in Evan's house. The smell of popcorn floated from the living room where Lily was drawing with her crayons. Evan sat on the couch thinking about the moment when Lily had asked Clara that question. It had replayed in his mind again and again. He could still see the look in Clara's eyes when Lily took her hand. It had been full of affection, but also surprise and something like fear. He understood that feeling because he had felt it too. Lily came over carrying her drawing. "This is you and me and Clara," she said proudly. In her picture, 3 smiling stick figures stood under a big bright sun. Evan studied it for a moment. "That's beautiful," he said gently. She nodded and taped it to the fridge beside her school art. Then she asked, "When will we see her again?" Evan hesitated. He did not know the answer. "Soon, I think," he said. Lily seemed to like that answer and went back to coloring. Evan looked at the phone on the table. He wanted to message Clara, but could not find the words. He worried she might feel uncomfortable. The line between friendship and something deeper was not clear anymore. Later that night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked in a sleepy voice, "Daddy, is it okay if I call her my new friend?" He smiled, brushed her hair, and told her it was more than okay. After she fell asleep, he sat by her door for a while, letting the soft quiet of the house settle around him. He realized it was not an empty silence anymore. It felt alive. 2 days passed before he finally sent Clara a short note. "Thank you for the fair. Lily had a wonderful time." There was a long pause before her reply arrived. It said, "I had a wonderful time too. Lily is very sweet." The simplicity of her message warmed him. They began to exchange brief notes again, small pieces of their days. She told him about her students painting ocean scenes. He told her about fixing a leaky faucet that refused to cooperate. Their words were ordinary, but filled with care. That Saturday, they met at the park again. Clara brought a small box of colored chalks for Lily, who quickly began drawing a rainbow on the walkway. Evan and Clara sat on a bench watching as the little girl laughed, kneeling on the ground to add another line of bright color. Evan turned to Clara. "About what Lily said at the fair," he began. Clara raised her hand gently to stop him, then wrote on the chalkboard, "She is a lovely child." "I was only surprised." He nodded. "She misses her mother. I think she saw something in you she feels safe with." Clara looked down at the board and wrote, "I understand. Loss leaves room that love can fill again." Evan thought about that. His eyes fixed on the path where Lily was drawing clouds around the rainbow. "Do you really believe that?" he asked. Clara looked at him, her gaze soft and steady. She wrote, "Yes, but it takes time. Hearts heal slowly." Her words settled into him like gentle rain. He spent the next hour helping Lily draw flowers along the sidewalk. Other children joined them, and soon the gray pavement turned into a sea of colors. Clara laughed silently as chalk dust covered her fingers. Evan watched her face light up and thought she looked happier than anyone he had seen in a long time. When the sun began to set, they walked back to the parking lot. Lily was tired, her small hands colorful from chalk. She held one of Clara's fingers while they walked. Evan saw how naturally it happened and felt both afraid and grateful at the same time. Before getting into her car, Clara took her chalkboard again and wrote, "Thank you for today." Then she added, "You both make the world quiet in a good way." Evan smiled. "You've done the same for us," he said. For a moment they stood there, not quite ready to leave, but not sure what came next. When she finally drove away, he felt the strange mix of peace and longing that had become familiar since meeting her. That night, Lily fell asleep quickly. Evan sat by the window thinking about how easily Clara and Lily had formed a bond. It was not forced. It was simple, gentle, real. He thought about how Clara had said hearts heal slowly. He wondered if his own heart was beginning to heal without him noticing. He looked at the rainbow Lily had drawn earlier, still faintly visible through the street lights near the park entrance. The colors had faded but could still be seen if one looked long enough. He liked to think of his life that way, colors returning little by little. Before going to bed, he wrote a final message to Clara. "I am glad you are in our lives." Then he turned out the light, lying in the dark. listening to the calm hum of the night. For the first time in years, the quiet did not ache. It held promise, something soft and full, waiting for morning. The days after the park visit passed peacefully. Evan noticed a lightness in his home that had not been there for a long time. Lily hummed while eating breakfast. She kept talking about Clara as if she had known her for years. Some mornings, she asked to draw pictures to show her next time. Evan smiled at her excitement, but inside he felt unsure if there should be a next time so soon. He was beginning to care for Clara deeply, and that feeling both comforted and frightened him. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, Evan walked outside onto the porch. The sky was getting dark, and the cool air carried the sound of crickets. He thought about how Clara had looked as she waved goodbye last time. That gentle smile and those quiet eyes stayed clear in his mind. He took his phone out and started typing a message, but kept deleting and rewriting until finally he sent a simple one. "Hope your week is going well." The next morning her reply was waiting. "Busy week with my students, but all is well. Hope Lily is doing fine." He felt warmth while reading it. He wrote back about Lily's new obsession with painting her toys in bright colors. Clara answered that she would like to see one of those painted toys someday. Their small conversation became a daily habit. The messages were never long, yet they felt meaningful. Each one carried care without needing many words. A week later, Clara invited them to a small art show at the school. Evan hesitated again, but finally agreed. On the day of the show, the hall was filled with nervous children and proud parents. Clara stood at the front, helping a student adjust a painting. She wore a simple blue dress and her hair tied back. When she saw Evan and Lily, she waved. Lily ran toward her with a laugh while Evan followed behind more slowly, trying not to seem too happy to be there. Clara knelt down to greet Lily, showing her the paintings made by the children. Lily looked around in amazement and kept asking what each one was about. Clara wrote little notes explaining them on her small board. When she came to a painting of a sunrise over the sea, she motioned to Lily and wrote, "Will you help me choose a name for this one?" Lily thought for a moment and said, "New Morning." Clara looked pleased and wrote the name beside the painting. Evan watched quietly. There was a calm joy between Clara and Lily that filled the noisy room. Clara turned to him, wrote, "You did well raising her," and gave a small smile. Evan replied, "She makes it easy." After the show ended, Clara packed some supplies in boxes. Evan offered to carry them to her car. The evening air was warm as they walked to the parking lot. Lily held a small canvas Clara had given her as a gift. On the back, Clara had written, "Keep painting the world bright." When they reached the car, Evan wanted to say something more personal. He looked at her and said softly, "I am glad you invited us." She smiled and began to write something before pausing. Then she rubbed the chalk away and instead wrote, "You both make ordinary days special." Before he could answer, some students called her name, and she waved goodbye. Evan stood there for a moment after she drove away. He realized he was smiling without meaning to. Days turned into another week. Evan noticed he could go hours without feeling the dull sorrow that used to follow him everywhere. He no longer dreaded weekends. On Saturday morning, he and Lily baked cookies and decided to bring some to Clara's school. When they arrived, children were playing outside, and Clara was painting a large mural on one wall of the building. She looked surprised but happy to see them. Lily handed her the cookie box. Clara took it and wrote, "These look wonderful. Thank you." He realized Clara had a way of saying the most meaningful things with the simplest words. They stayed until sunset. As they packed up, Lily ran to pick a small flower from the grass and gave it to Clara. She tucked it into her notebook with care. On the drive home, Lily talked non-stop about how she wanted to be a painter like Clara one day. Evan smiled quietly, his hands steady on the steering wheel. He was starting to believe that happiness did not need grand changes or loud moments. It could grow quietly, like paint spreading across a canvas, one soft stroke at a time.